And we saw this as really an unlock to give what we call "and" solutions. Typically in livestock innovation, you're trying to affect performance or you're trying to affect disease. We actually want to try to cover both. So for example, in our lead product, BE101, Optavant, we're targeting not only control of disease, but improvement of performance of the animal in the process.
Welcome to Agbioscience, the #1 podcast in the world for innovation in food, animal health, plant science, ag tech, and agriculture. Welcome back to Agbioscience. I'm Kayla Chittister, producer of the podcast and this week's guest host of the show. From leadership additions to Series B funding and movement through the innovation pipeline, BiomEdit has no shortage of momentum on their side. This week, I had a chance to talk with Aaron Schacht, CEO of the company, and to run through everything, including BE101, Optavant, and its movement through USDA regulatory approvals. We talk about company culture, their scientific discovery process, growth, and what lies ahead for the company. Please enjoy this discussion. I'm no scientist, but it was a lot of fun learning from Aaron, his style of leadership, and what lies ahead. Aaron, thank you for joining us on Agbioscience.
Yeah, my pleasure to be here, Kayla.
You guys have had a lot going on, from product pipeline, leadership additions, fundraising, a lot of momentum in the sales, and we're going to dive into all of that. But before we do, I think it's probably helpful that we share some high-level perspective on BiomEdit and the work your team is doing.
Sure. No, 25 has been a really momentum year for us. BiomEdit, for folks who are not familiar with our story, is a 3-year-old microbial biotechnology company focused in the animal health space. We carved out of Elanco, where I used to lead R&D and in business development and regulatory affairs, took a platform that we had built inside Elanco that we thought had great promise to provide innovation for livestock in particular, but not limited to livestock, and went out and raised venture capital, built a team, grew up the company, has just completed another funding round, and we're on the verge of really introducing a first product based on the platform into the market next year.
Whether it's global food security, methane emission reduction, nutrition, you name it, you guys are working to address some of the most critical issues that we're facing in ag bioscience. Can you talk a little bit about the innovation pipeline you guys have going and some of the things that have you most excited that you're working on right now?
Yeah, the vision for BiomEdit was to recognize the fundamental role that the microbiome in an animal plays in terms of regulating and addressing a healthy state or an improved production condition. And we saw this as really an unlock to give what we call "and" solutions. Typically in livestock innovation, you're trying to affect performance or you're trying to affect disease. We actually want to try to cover both. So for example, in our lead product, BE101, Optavant, we're targeting not only control of disease, but improvement of performance of the animal in the process. In methane emission reduction, one of the interesting evolutions in the marketplace is there's technology that would reduce methane emission, but they don't bring any production benefit. And so for the livestock producer, you're forced to make a choice. Do I want this or that? We're trying to give them the "and." You get methane emission reduction if our technology works the way we think it will, and you get a production benefit. So you're not making that economic trade-off just to get some other benefit. You're actually finding a solution that can give you both. So our vision is to bring those "and" solutions to the market, focus on the livestock side, and frankly, we live in a world where there's been a lot of innovation on the pet health side, but not so much on the livestock side. So we've sort of taken on the challenge of trying to bring new technology to the livestock space.
So Optavant, BE101, it's recently moved into its next phase in the regulatory process. Can you share where it's at right now? Because it feels like it's moving at a rate that's encouraging. Where is it at in the regulatory phases right now? And what is BE101 going to prevent for the poultry industry?
Yeah, great question. So BE101, I'll start with the second part first. I'll describe the product and then talk about where we are relative to realizing that product's entry into the market. BE101 was designed to be an engineered bacteria. We discovered native microorganisms in the gut of a chicken that play a beneficial role, probiotics, and we envisioned the idea of giving them superpowers, so to speak. We engineered them to express molecules that bind and neutralize the toxins that come from a pathogen. A pathogen is a bad bacteria that causes disease. In this case, the pathogen's called Clostridium perfringens, and it expresses toxins that degrade the gut integrity. They literally drill holes in the intestinal cell wall to release nutrients that it can thrive on. And so when a chicken gets infected by that, what happens is they get sick first, and then they may die due to this infection. What we do is we come along and we take that the toxins that are present and the molecules that are good bacteria express, neutralize those toxins, and we reduce the disease pressure and the disease burden that these birds experience. So many more birds will live in the presence of this C. perfringens challenge, and these birds that do live will produce better. So we actually address the problem in a very clever way, and there's no resistance concerns with our technology. With antibiotics, when you try to kill pathogens, you select for the most robust versions of the pathogen. They survive the antibiotic assault, and so they multiply, and that's how resistance ensues. We don't kill the pathogen. We just take its weapons away, so to speak. So that's BE 101. Where are we in the regulatory process? We're in the final stretch. So our product has received approvals for all the safety studies necessary. It's received approvals for the master seeds that we use to make the product. It's received approval for the efficacy study that will support the conditional licensure. And so there's really two steps left. One is we have to get authorization by the government that this genetically engineered product can be used in food production. It's safe in the environment. We believe all of that data exists to prove that case, but we need to complete that process. And then the final step is running field safety trials. We actually have to run the product and test for safety in a commercial setting. So we'll have to convince a few producers to try our product for field safety purposes. We don't believe that will be a big hurdle. And then we will receive, after a review period, a conditional license, and we can begin to commercialize the product. We expect that all to happen within effectively the next year or towards the end of next year, sitting here today.
Okay, so moving still pretty quickly.
Yeah, we're pretty excited.
Yeah, that's fantastic. There's something that you kind of said, this and solution, and we talk a lot about certainty for producers on Agbioscience. And so can you kind of speak to this idea of providing a more certain solution and what it's like to innovate in that space where you are creating more certainty in a time where it's needed? Yeah.
Look, the producer is fixated on the economics of their production system. And their challenge is the win for them with their economics is to realize the full genetic potential of the animals that they produce with. And so disease is often a setback for them, right? It undermines the production capacity. So when we go to address the one problem that they care most about, getting high-producing, animal protein system, we have to start there. Because if I go to them and I say, I have a solution for a disease problem, but it's not going to produce better, there's no sale. They're not going to adopt. And so we've taken on the challenge that the fundamental approach needs to be, we need to be convincing around how we can help their performance economically, and then realize the full potential of the other benefits that the product may have around animal welfare, environmental sustainability, antimicrobial resistance, food safety. Those are all things that they care about, but in many ways secondarily to, I got to have a high-producing chicken or a high-producing cow. And if I can't get that first, I shouldn't be spending money on it. Yeah.
All of those messages important in an increasing consumer voice-oriented landscape as well.
Right. No question. That's downstream.
Yeah.
And consumers are making choices about how food is produced. I'm amazed sometimes at how little consumers know about how food is produced, and so we've got to do a better job as an industry, both the food production industry and, let's say in my case, the animal health industry, of explaining how our technologies actually give them what they're looking for, without causing undue concern. And look, we're looking down the barrel of, we're introducing a, quote, GMO. It's a genetically engineered input. We know it's fundamentally safe. The science is very sound, but our industry has a legacy of not answering those questions in the most straightforward manner and causing concern and worry on the consumer side that what they may be ingesting has been changed or modified in some way that the side effects will show up later. So I think there is a scientific communication, consumer engagement aspect of the strategy that we've taken on that we have to, work our way through. But we know that going into it. We knew that going in, and we like to believe that the other side of it is we will address food safety, for example, without creating a problem, and we'll give economics to the producer. We think we can tie that whole story together.
You have a growing team of scientists joining the BiomEdit ranks. Can you talk about the culture and the mindset around BiomEdit when it comes to scientific discovery, collaboration? What is it like on your team when it comes to developing and putting things into the product pipeline?
Yeah, just yesterday I had the entire BiomEdit team here in Fishers at the Hyatt Place in Fishers, and we had an all-company meeting for the first time in 2 years. And so I'm actually sort of fully acquainted with the experience of being in the setting where all of our employees were there, and you could feel the culture. I think what we've been able to do is balance the risk-reward nature of a biotech venture with probably an overall approach to management of we're confident that we will find a way through the problems that we endure, right? Science is hard. You get data sets that don't quite produce what you're looking for. I've found over my history of leading R&D efforts that if the first thing management reacts to in terms of, let's say, a failed experiment is, well, we lose confidence in the scientists, they'll pick that up immediately. We lose confidence in our ability to prove a hypothesis that we were less knowledgeable about when we said it, and we take the knowledge of the failure and we improve the hypothesis. So I try to transform everything into there's no failure. There's either success in your original goal or learning how to revise your goal based on what you've learned, right? The only failure is failure to learn. And so I think we've tried to embed that principle in our culture. And then, building a team, right? Jim Collins, right, the author of Good to Great, says first who, then what. So we always focus on people that we know will add to the culture, not detract from it. The temptation to hire somebody who's got an amazing skill set but would be a poor fit, we don't even go there. We don't take the risk. And the idea that just because someone works for me, they're going to be better than they look in their history, that's probably a faulty solution or assumption as well. So we're very careful about who we recruit, how we recruit. We've never used a recruiter, in fact. Every job we've hired for, it's either been somebody we already know in our network or a LinkedIn post. And then we just mine who applies and look for both technical fit and cultural fit. And it's pretty simple that way. We've done okay.
You have done okay. And we're going to dive into the fundraising and the leadership additions and the who and the what after the break. Agbioscience is supported by Indiana Farm Bureau.
Need affordable health coverage? Indiana Farm Bureau health plans offer health benefits with options to fit everyone. Indiana Farm Bureau health plans give members a choice with multiple plans, many provider options, varying levels of coverage and deductibles, and a range of out-of-pocket maximums. Another great benefit about Indiana Farm Bureau health plans is cost effectiveness. Plans may have lower deductibles and premiums overall compared to ACA plans. And finally, all health plans are backed by excellent customer service. Go to infbhealthplans.com or visit your local Indiana Farm Bureau insurance office to learn more.
Welcome back to Agbioscience, talking with Aaron Schacht, CEO of BiomEdit. Hey, Aaron, a lot of wind in the sails, $18.4 million in Series B. Yeah. That was a recent announcement, I believe, last month. With that kind of fundraise and momentum in your sales, what does the raise enable the BiomEdit team to do?
Yeah, first thing about the raise, I started the fundraise in October of 2023. When we projected we had about a year of cash left, and I was aware of the market we were in. First of all, animal health venture does not have a large repertoire of investors, and so it's a limited capital pool in the first place. And it was a challenging raise, but I'm gratified by our success. We have a lead investor, Antera Capital, who really hung with us throughout. and really made this possible for other investors to feel good about coming in. So we're really excited about the raise. This raise was perfectly designed to get us capital for the next 6 quarters, effectively. And in fact, that was the theme of the all-company meeting yesterday. What are we going to deliver over the next 6 quarters? That's really what we have earned the right to do. And so it's really about getting BE-101, Optavant, through conditional licensure and into the market. We have a lineup of really interesting other projects in the pipeline that will advance through their paces. All of these are going to deliver, really, I think, future-defining qualities of the product opportunity or not, right? It's either going to turn over a card and it doesn't work, and it's either back to the drawing board or move on to something else that's working, or it looks like it's going to work and now we need to get more serious about it and move it ahead with sense of urgency.
You also added to your leadership team, getting back to kind of the who of things. What have those additions brought to the BiomEdit team that are new, fresh in terms of perspective and leadership?
Really good timing. So first of all, Kristen Bloink, formerly someone I worked very close with at Elanco for a long time, came to really appreciate her capabilities, has joined to lead product development. It just so happened that my leader of product development decided earlier in the year to pursue a separate passion and move out of BiomEdit, and I was sort of manning that position in the interim, and fortunate to see Kristen's interest to join. She's come on board, really grabbed hold of really leadership around BE-101 and advancing us with really great focus and much more certainty, not to criticize the team or anything, but anytime you bring someone with that kind of experience, you just gain a greater sense of possibility of dealing with what you might encounter. And so that's what Kristen brings. And she's a great natural leader as well. So she complements the leadership team in a really meaningful way. Andrew Carlson, our chief commercial officer, is someone who I also worked with at Elanco back in the day. And he's run the U.S. poultry business at Elanco, the commercial business, the nutritional health business at Elanco, selling nutritional health products. So he's got great, tremendous experience. He recently hails from Aviogen, one of the largest poultry genetics companies. So he knows all of what the customers are buying in terms of the genetics, and that brings a real insight into how we approach the customer. So, you know, these are veterans who know their space. They know what they're good at. Neither one of them is trying to do anything but put a dent in the world, so to speak. And so it really galvanizes our team around, let's get this done.
Yeah, it's an exciting time, especially as you look at those next 6 quarters, Optavant and getting things on the market.
That's right.
Curious, when you look at scientific discovery, this idea that you guys use, AI-driven algorithms to sort of, predictive analysis, what do you think are the biggest opportunities in front of BiomEdit that you've not yet had the opportunity to go after, especially as AI gets more sophisticated? Yeah. What are the biggest opportunities in front of you?
We see the microbiome space as something that will obtain a new level of mastery over our understanding of this complex adaptive system using AI tools. That's the first and foremost. We've always believed that from the inception, but it's really starting to accelerate as the language models get better. Right, we need to create a microbiome language model, an MLM, and that doesn't exist. And we're at least going to be contributing to the scientific matter in that regard. And we're aiming at the problems in front of us relative to the intersection between microbiome biological activity and host animal physiology, and how to unlock that complex array of variables and insights. And that's already showing benefits in terms of how we interpret biological data that comes out of the studies we run when we feed our product to chickens. Another area that I'm really excited about, and specifically aimed towards AI, is we actually were successful in applying for a Bezos Earth Fund grant focused on AI impact on climate. That was the brand of the sort of call for proposals. And the Bezos Fund got over 1,000 submissions to this grant, and they down-selected 25 groups to receive a $50,000 planning grant to take your original proposal now to a more concrete implementation plan. And of those 25, of which we were one of the recipients, they're going to down-select to 15 who will get a $1 million or more award. We're waiting to hear on that, but that is exclusively an opportunity that I feel confident that we'll get. I probably just jinxed us, but when we get it, it'll recognize BiomEdit as having a unique, Bezos level impact opportunity in applying AI to climate changes. And we're in essence creating a digital twin of rumen physiology. So if we know the genetics of a cow, the food they eat, and the microbiome composition of a cow, we aim to be able to predict what kind of methane producer that cow is.
That's incredible. I have no response to that, Aaron, other than it's incredible. Timeline of that?
We should hear this month in September whether or not we got that actual grant. And then the grant, we have a collaboration with the two other parties that are co-PIs on the grant, and we'll move forward with that project work with those new funds.
No jinxing, only manifestation.
That's
putting
right.
You're putting it out into the ether.
I feel good. Look, the team has done a great job putting it together. It's worthy of an award. I realize there might be 26 that are worthy of an award, or 16 in this case, and we were the 16th and not one of the 15. But that's the way it goes. We don't regret trying because we still have a good idea about how this work can impact our company's future.
Well, that leads us into our next question as we kind of look on the horizon for BiomEdit. You talk about these next 6 quarters, but what is ahead for BiomEdit outside of Optavant 25, 26?
Yeah.
What has you most excited about the year to come?
Yeah, we have our first feed additive product in the methane space. So this is a naturally occurring combination of organisms, 2 organisms that are in a study in California right now looking at whether or not we can observe a meaningful effect at reducing methane production in a dairy cow while increasing either milk yield or milk quality. And so we'll have those data sets probably sometime by the end of October. And so we'll know if that looks like it's a product opportunity to advance. That's a product that we're already partnered with Nutreco, one of the world leading feed additive companies. And we'd be very excited about that now moving into more of a commercial direction really as quickly as possible. So that could be a second product on the horizon if the science works itself out. We also have a second product in poultry, similar to BE-101, but focusing on a food safety pathogen, Campylobacter. Everybody's familiar with Salmonella as a big food safety pathogen, and the reason we know about it is because we have solutions for it. Campylobacter, there really is no solution. It's hygienic only, right? It's sterilization, it's premise treatment, those kinds of things. But we think we can actually affect the Campylobacter infection load directly in the gut of a chicken, and we have a strategy designed to do it. And we're just going to be reading out our latest attempt at proving that, hopefully by the end of the year or early part of next year. And then finally, we have a third program that we've moved into really an exciting space on the pet health side. I won't give too much detail, but we think we can feed a probiotic that makes a molecule that will allow a fat cat to be skinny again. And so cat obesity is a large problem. It's estimated that 60% of the cats in the United States become obese. And of those 60% of cats becoming obese, half of those develop diabetes. And of those, large majority of them end up with end-stage kidney failure, which is the leading cause of death in cats. So this is an axis of disease process that we want to intervene at the outset instead of downstream, and we think we might have a novel, clever approach to it.
So many innovations happening across so many areas, Aaron. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's fun. It's cool.
It really is. Thank you so much for taking the time today to join us on Agbioscience. We really appreciate it.
You bet. My pleasure, Kayla.
And thank you for joining us on Agbioscience. On behalf of the entire AgriNovus team, we say thank you, and we look forward to seeing you on the podcast next week.
Agbioscience is a podcast by AgriNovus Indiana, brought to you by Indiana Farm Bureau. Produced by Kayla Chittister and Fabian Rodriguez. Photography and design by Kaylee Verstay. Video by Darren Cooper and 1898 Creative. If you like today's episode, subscribe, rate, listen, and review. Get all episodes of Agbioscience online at agrinovusindiana.com.